Guys, I need to be real to you. Do you ever know the feeling where when you used to be so close before, then there came a time where some kind of force just pushes you away from each other, and as time passes by, you cannot go back because the more and more you go away from that person, and there's no more turning back. You are far away and becoming farther and farther away until you cannot see each other anymore. That is the reason why there is the formation of a mid-Atlantic ridge, which has been caused by the divergence of two oceanic plates. Yes! Now, the drama was a good line from a movie, a very famous movie produced by yours truly, which does not exist. Okay. Now, in this video, we're going to be discussing and moving on to another boundary, which is also known as the divergent boundary. So, divergent boundary. Now, this boundary here is wherein two tectonic plates go away from each other, or move away from each other. And this here type of boundary is caused by a specific type of force from the convection current that's happening in the mantle. And it's called as the ridge push. Okay? Where rising rocks push against the lithosphere, influencing also the asthenosphere. So the asthenosphere is also a main mover in this type of boundary. So there will be two types of divergent boundaries. A very, very famous one is going to be the divergence of two oceanic crusts. There is a very, very famous example of this type of boundary, and a very, very hard one to find an example about is the divergence of two continental plates. Okay? So, let's go in and dive first to the divergence of two oceanic plates. So, what usually happens in this type of plate boundaries, two oceanic crusts, of course, in the middle of the ocean, are gonna be influenced by ridge push, pushing them away from each other. So let's create a certain boundary here. This is the boundary between two oceanic crusts. The ridge push coming from the mantle, from the convection currents, and the asthenosphere is gonna push up, and then it's going to push these two continental plates away from each other. Okay, so let's just put some water over there. Okay, and then that is why these two plates are going away from each other, because of ridge push. So, sir, what is the landform that is formed here? Okay, so the landform that is formed here, there's gonna be something like this. Okay, this here is what's called as a ridge. A ridge is different from a trench because a trench is produced by a convergent boundary, but a ridge is going to be produced by a divergent boundary. Let's look at some very, very famous examples. Over here, we have the mid-Atlantic ridge, the longest ridge in all of the Earth. So, surnamed mid-Atlantic ridge, a divergent or constructive plate boundary located along the floor of the Atlantic Ocean and part of the longest mountain ranges in the world. Okay, let's just look at that right now. So this here is where the mid-Atlantic ridge is located. So this here is America, North and South America. This is Europe and Africa. And then these two, and all of these tectonic plates are moving away from each other. And at the middle of those tectonic plates, this here is your mid-Atlantic ridge. Okay, so let's look at the tectonic map. So this here, North American plate, South American plate, Arabian plate, and Eurasian plate. And look at those arrows there at the middle. It's going away, 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 away from each other. So sir, how does a mid-Atlantic ridge look like? And how does it physically look like? Okay, so let's look at some pictures over here. This here is some part of the mid-Atlantic ridge over here. So again, the divergence of two oceanic boundaries creates a ridge over here. These plates over here are going away from each other, thus creating this landform over here at the middle, caused by ridge push. And as I mentioned to you also, there will be another version of this, such as the divergence of two continental plates. So this is most probably the same thing that's going to happen. Two tectonic plates are going to be influenced by ridge push, and the two tectonic plates are going to go away from each other. But as I scrolled through the internet, I only found one landform that is really famous, and it is called as the African Rift Valley. So the landform that is produced by the divergence of two continental plates is called a rift valley. There. Sir, how does a rift valley look like? So of course it's a valley with two, it looks like this, like two. I'll just show you the picture na lang. A rift valley. There. This here is a really famous rift valley because it is located in Africa. This here is your African Rift Valley. There. Thank you to National Geographic for this picture. Okay, so these two tectonic continental crusts are actually moving away from each other a few centimeters per year. This here is a good illustration by Geology In. Okay, this part is over here, going here. Let's look at that. So it's over this part of Africa, and then some parts are going away from each other. Okay, look at that. This here is the African Rift Valley. Okay, so this is what is formed due to the divergence of two plates. The divergence of two oceanic plates will produce a ridge, and the divergence of two continental plates produces a rift valley. How they formed? They are formed by the force called ridge push. So same, nalagay na lang natin dito, ridge push, which pushes the two tectonic plates away from each other. And at the middle of this also, new plates are formed. That's why divergent boundaries are also called as constructive boundaries, because they are ones that also create new tectonic plates. This is where new tectonic plates are created. And over at convergent boundaries, such as this one, this here is a destructive boundary. Because tectonic plates, when they sink, they will melt and go back to the mantle and parts of the asthenosphere. When in a divergent boundary, ridge push produces new tectonic plates. And that is the story of the divergent boundary.